Well, I mean, if you really love the other person, you know where you don't go.
We can all agree that Jay Leno is the undisputed master of late-night humor, thanks to his many appearances on The Tonight Show. What if, nevertheless, the famous comic had been keeping a tragic secret from the public for many years? His formative years were marked by grief and yearning, yet he emerged from it as a humorous and prank-filled young man. Then there's the girl, a strong-willed feminist who became Jay's soulmate despite her resolve to never tie the knot. For what reason did Jay hide his suffering under his comic persona? How did he and his wife overcome all obstacles to create a marriage that would last? The rumor has dogged him for decades, but what is its true origin? Here's Jay Leno in a way you've never seen him before. Jay Leno, a child prodigy, came into this world in New Rochelle, New York on April 28, 1950. Catherine, his mother, was a stay-at-home mom who emigrated to America from Scotland when she was a young girl. Angelo, his father, was born to Italian immigrants to New York and worked as an insurance salesman. Patrick, Jay's older brother, served in the Vietnam War and went on to become a lawyer. Patrick died in 2002, which is a great loss. Comedy was always something that Leno enjoyed, even as a child. When he was in elementary school, he was always pulling pranks and making up practical jokes. By way of background, Leno went to and graduated from Andover High School in northern Massachusetts. In a little town in Essex County, Massachusetts, some 20 miles outside of Boston, the would-be comic got his start chopping potatoes at the McDonald's on Main Street. Participating in a McDonald's talent contest gave Leno his first taste of the lucrative comedy industry, and he went on to make his first successful entry into the field while employed there. As a student at Boston's Emerson College, Leno wasted no time in putting his comedic ambitions into action, writing and performing sketches in local coffee shops and on campus. Leno received her BA in speech therapy from Emerson College in 1973. Leno uprooted his life in Boston and moved to Los Angeles in pursuit of his comedic ambitions. The year 1976 was the beginning of Leno's rise to fame. As he began to open for artists like Johnny Mathis and Tom Jones, small acting roles started to fall into his lap. In the pilot episode of Holmes and Yo-Yo, the now 20-something made an appearance. In 1977, nevertheless, he got the invitation that all budding comic dreams of, an appearance on The Tonight Show. This was the turning point in his career. Jay felt he was getting closer to his goal when his jokes connected with the audience and made them laugh. The path to stardom, however, was far from straightforward. Jay had a scattershot acting career in the 1970s. An episode of the sitcom Good Times had him in a sticky situation, and he was also in the Holmes and Yo-Yo pilot, a funny show. A little role in Fun with Dick and Jane was Jay's first exposure to Hollywood. Larger responsibilities subsequently occurred. In 1978, he performed on American Hot Wax and Silver Bears, bringing his humorous skills. He was constantly switching gears from one endeavor to another at that period. He dabbled with political satire. America Thon had parts in the made-for-TV film Almost Heaven and was a regular on the hit series One Day at a Time. In the 1980s, Jay kept performing, appearing in films like Polyester and making cameos on hit TV shows like Alice, Laverne and Shirley, Married, and other campy comedies, alongside kids. His parts may not have been the most prominent, but they all contributed to his professional development and name recognition. Collision Course, a buddy police comedy starring Jay and the late Pat Morita of the Karate Kid fame, was Jay's sole feature film appearance in 1989. Although the picture bombed at the box office, it gave Jay a rare chance to star in a main role and display his comic chops. There was more on Jay's wish list. He was also a regular on another late-night talk program, Late Night with David Letterman, and he even dabbled in game shows for a short time, making appearances on Match Game and Hollywood Squares. The budding comic put in a lot of time and effort throughout that period. On his way to become a famous actor, every part he played was significant. These formative events were molding him into the legendary late-night presenter he would become, but he was oblivious to it at the time. The Tonight Show was Jay Leno's baby in the late 80s. He was more than simply a guest. He filled in often as Johnny Carson's stand-in host. Being Johnny's understudy was like being a Broadway star. Every time he took the stage, he had an opportunity to prove himself. This was a major thing. Johnny Carson, the reigning monarch of late-night television, was resigning in 1992, leaving the position vacant. Everyone was waiting to see who would succeed him as king. There were two strong candidates, and the atmosphere was electric. David Letterman, the sardonic and eccentric presenter of Late Night with David Letterman, the show that succeeded The Tonight Show, and Jay Leno, the dependable stand-up comedian and frequent guest host, were on opposite sides. Carson was among those who saw Letterman as the inevitable successor, but NBC, home of The Tonight Show, had other ideas. Jason Leno was their pick. The news rocked the entertainment world to its core and set in motion the animosity that would later be dubbed the Late Night Wars. There was a book and a movie made about it because of how dramatic the whole thing was. Jay Leno maintained his composure despite all that was going on. He kept doing what he loved, making people laugh, by taking over The Tonight Show. He never lost touch with his roots and continued performing stand-up comedy. Jay began to see results from his efforts. His first ratings victory against Letterman came in 1995. This was a huge win, and it proved he was the rightful ruler of late night. The years only served to increase Jay's already massive fan base. His friendly demeanor and clever humor made him a nightly staple in American households. To keep their Golden Goose host, Jay, on The Tonight Show until 2009, NBC extended his contract in 2004. However, a shift was approaching. Conan O'Brien, another famous comedian, was also recruited to host The Tonight Show in 2009 by NBC that same year. Although Jay's reign will inevitably come to a close, he would seize the moment while he could, as he was still the undisputed master of the late night. Even a monarch has to face difficulties, and Jay Leno's reign on The Tonight Show persisted as the years passed. A strike by the Writers Guild of America occurred in 2007. This strike wasn't like any other. It threatened to halt late-night comedy in its tracks. Accusations that he had broken the strike guidelines by penning his own monologues for The Tonight Show landed Jay in serious water amidst all the upheaval. It was a complicated scenario since the WGA disputed allegations that NBC and Jay had a secret arrangement with them. The stakes were high, as members' jobs and reputations were on the line during the two separate trials before the Writers Guild of America West Trial Committee. As the smoke cleared, the WGA had achieved a little win by removing Jay off their list of strikebreakers. But 2009 was yet another year that life tossed Jay a curveball. His sudden hospitalization with an unnamed ailment came in the height of the writer strike's drama. Both fans and co-workers were worried at the time. Is this the last day of his rule? Luckily, that wasn't the case. It is a tribute to Jay's commitment and work ethic that he was discharged from the hospital the following day and returned to work on Monday. The two canceled episodes were the first he had missed in his 17 years as presenter. His initial secrecy about his sickness only served to heighten the air of mystery around it. Nevertheless, he eventually told People magazine that he was just exhausted, proving that even the seemingly unstoppable Jay Leno was human and could feel the effects of everyday pressures and worries. The tides were shifting, and late-night television royalty Jay Leno was ready to set sail on an exciting new journey. He was approaching the conclusion of his contract with NBC, even if The Tonight Show was still popular with viewers. Many wondered if he would leave for another network. Would he ever quit? It was a make-or-break moment for late-night TV. Though he will no longer be appearing on The Tonight Show, Jay has shockingly chosen to remain with NBC. On the contrary, he would transition to a fresh primetime program airing at 10 p.m. midnight Eastern Standard Time. This was a daring and risky act, but Jay never shied away from a challenge. The Tonight Show was Jay Leno's last broadcast on May 29, 2009. A new era started with the passing of the torch to Conan O'Brien, but Jay didn't stay absent for very long. The Jay Leno Show debuted on September 14, 2009, which was just a few months after that. Featuring musical performances, prominent guests, and the renowned starring section, it followed a familiar format, similar to The Tonight Show but airing earlier in the evening, allowing Jay to reach a new audience. There were a lot of famous people at the premiere, including Jerry Seinfeld, Oprah Winfrey, and Kanye West, who made an unexpected appearance after his contentious stunt at the MTV Video Music Awards the previous night. Although shifting to primetime was risky, Jay felt sure of it. He was prepared to revolutionize late-night television with his dedicated fan base, successful career, and fresh platform to exhibit his abilities. But as the old adage goes, even the most well-planned actions may backfire. The ratings for Jay's new program weren't as good as planned, and the show encountered some unforeseen problems. Both Jay's position in late-night television and the future of the Jay Leno Show were cast in doubt. Nobody was pleased with the way things changed in the middle of the night. The new 10 p.m. Jay Leno program has failed to live up to its original hype. Both Late Night with Conan O'Brien and the show weren't drawing in the audience that NBC had hoped for. As a result of dull let-ins, the network's affiliate newscasts were under intense pressure. There needed to be a shift. Whispers became rumors, and rumors became truth, all inside the confines of private conversations. The announcement that Jay Leno was returning to his former haunt, the 11:35 p.m. hour, was made public on January 7, 2010. Time slot, while the groundbreaking move of moving Conan's Tonight Show to 12:05 a.m. would take place. Shock rippled through the entertainment sector as a result of the disclosure. As Conan felt betrayed by having his dream job taken away from him after just a few months on the job, it caused a psychological crisis for him and a public relations disaster for NBC. Although NBC was able to make the change thanks to his contract, he was caught unawares by the decision. What made matters worse was that Conan's show was already scheduled to air in the dead of night due to the 2010 Winter Olympics, which were supposed to air before any late-night programming on NBC. The shift was formally announced by NBC on January 10th. Jay would return at 11:35 p.m., leaving Conan with a tough decision: accept the new time slot and shorter program or quit the network completely. TMZ stated that Conan was irate because NBC had given him no advance notice of the adjustment and because the ultimatum was like a smack in the face. The beloved presenter's ambition of returning to headline The Tonight Show was now in jeopardy as he found himself embroiled in a conflict with his own network. On January 12th, the late-night drama peaked when Conan O'Brien made a daring statement. He would resign as host of The Tonight Show if it was moved to 12:05 a.m. He had great regard for the program and its tradition, and thought this change would be detrimental to it. As many viewers and experts in the business have expressed, The Tonight Show at 12:05 simply isn't The Tonight Show, as Conan went on to say. The stakes were high and the battle lines were set. While talks between Conan and NBC persisted, a chasm opened up between the networks. It was a make-or-break moment for late-night TV. Finally, an agreement was achieved on January 21st. After Conan's departure from The Tonight Show, he would earn a substantial compensation of $33 million, while his hard-working team of over 200 would receive $12 million. The triumph was bittersweet, marking the conclusion of a turbulent period. January 22, 2010, was the air date of Conan's last episode. It was a moving parting accompanied with joy, sadness, and genuine farewells. Fans were sad to see Conan go, but he did it with dignity and honor. Because Conan was no longer involved, Jay Leno reclaimed his position as host of The Tonight Show on March 1, 2010. The king had returned, and the late-night scenery had changed again. Despite continuing to be the most watched late-night program, Leno's Tonight Show had a dip in viewership due to the issue, earning its lowest second-quarter ratings since 1992. Everybody from the network to the hosts to the audience had been wounded in the fight for late-night dominance. Once again, the late-night scene was ripe for transformation in 2013. NBC announced in the spring of 2014 that Jay Leno will be departing The Tonight Show and that the affable Jimmy Fallon will take over for him. The announcement caused a stir in the entertainment industry, evoking memories of the tumultuous changeover from Johnny Carson to Jay Leno some years ago. There was no open animosity or enmity this time around. Being prepared to hand the baton to the next generation, Jay gracefully accepted the choice. A star-studded farewell to his illustrious career, his final Tonight Show as host was a true celebration. Billy Crystal, who was Jay's very first guest on The Tonight Show, made a farewell appearance and serenaded the crowd with his legendary songs. In attendance to pay their respects and partake in the melancholy farewell were surprise visitors such as Kim Kardashian, Jack Black, Jim Parsons, Sheryl Crow, Chris Paul, Carol Burnett, and Oprah Winfrey. An appropriate farewell to an era was marked by a night of joy, sadness, and cherished memories. But Jay Leno has no intention of retiring just yet. He wasn't the kind to kick back and relax. Rather, he followed his passion for stand-up comedy on a cross-country tour, playing to sold-out crowds. His enthusiasm and love of comedy were contagious, and he performed over 200 concerts annually. In addition to Late Night with Seth Meyers and The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon, Jay appeared on additional late-night shows. As further proof that the late-night community was close-knit and that no bitter feelings existed, he even made an appearance on Craig Ferguson's farewell episode of The Late Late Show. A delightful turn of events occurred when Jay appeared in James Corden's debut of The Late Late Show. In a cameo appearance, Jay playfully tormented Corden in a mock talk show host boot camp, bringing a smile to everyone's face and highlighting Jay's willingness to embrace the next generation of late-night stars. A decision that caused speculation and debate, Jay declined invitations to appear on The Late Show with David Letterman, even for the show's 2015 finale. This decision was a reflection of Jay's respect for Letterman and his desire to avoid any needless drama after everything they had been through. Along with David Letterman and Oprah Winfrey, Jay made an appearance in a 2010 Super Bowl XL4 advertisement for The Late Show. At spite of their differences, they were all still members of the same late-night family, and that fact brought them together at that one instant. An hour-long episode airing on CNBC in 2014, Jay Leno's Garage, highlighted his extensive collection of cars and his enthusiasm for the automotive industry. Following the success of the program, CNBC expanded Jay Leno's Garage to prime time. Over the course of 7 seasons, Jay let viewers in on his passion for automobiles through celebrity interviews, unique vehicle showcases, and even some hands-on garage time. The opportunity to merge his two loves, humor and automobiles, into one thrilling endeavor was like a dream for the car aficionado. That wasn't the end of Jay's abilities. In addition, he made a triumphant comedic comeback to television with a recurring appearance in Last Man Standing, Tim Allen's comedy series. This part was tailor-made for Jay, who brought his dry humor and passion for fixing machines to life as Joe Leonard, an ordinary mechanic at outdoor sports goods retailer Mike Baxter. Taking on yet another daring undertaking in 2021, Jay presided over a 2-season resurrection of the legendary game show You Bet Your Life. His characteristic wit and quick wit were on full display as he entertained viewers with his fun conversation with contestants and witty remarks. Jay stood in solidarity with the authors during the 2023 WGA strike by staying off the picket line. During the strike, other programming was presented in lieu of You Bet Your Life, which was subsequently canceled. Jay's comedic chops were not confined to his live-action appearances. He provided the voice for other animation characters as well, such as Mickey and the Roadster Racers Billy Beagle, and the Fairly Odd Parents' Crimson Chin. These adored characters were given a unique touch by his unique voice and perfect timing. It was a touching moment that demonstrated Jay's admiration for talent and his readiness to back budding artists when he appeared as a guest on America's Got Talent in 2019 and had the privilege of pushing the golden buzzer for opera singer Iman Abisha. On the 2023 season finale of Hot Wheels Ultimate Challenge, Jay made a triumphant comeback to his former NBC home by serving as a celebrity guest judge. It brought back a flood of memories of his legendary television career, marking a full-circle moment. By the mid-1970s, Jay Leno had become a household name. Not only was his professional life booming, but his romantic life was on the verge of doing the same. Jay and Mavis Elizabeth Nicholson's remarkable love story started on a January 1976 night at the Comedy Store in Los Angeles. That evening, a friend and Mavis, a 29-year-old from San Francisco, were in the crowd. At the same time as she was honing her humorous writing skills, she found a fertile ground for them at the Comedy Store. It was Jay Leno, though, who piqued her interest that evening. Lucetta. Following Jay's performance, Mavis happened to be in the very washroom where the comics were. When Jay saw her in the front row, he questioned, "Are you the girl up there?" After striking up a discussion, tensions quickly rose. When Jay inquired Mavis's birthday in passing, she said September 5th, and he couldn't help but burst into laughter. It was an odd coincidence, but it appeared to be a sign, because many of the women Jay had dated were born in September. Their bond became stronger, and their romance flourished. Despite Mavis's fierce reluctance to marriage from a young age, Jay eventually proposed to her 4 years later. A feminist who found inspiration in the sitcom The Honeymooners, Mavis swore she would never settle down with a husband or start a family. In contrast, Jay was helpful, encouraging, and considerate of Mavis's autonomy. He wasn't like the tyrannical husbands she'd seen on TV. Their love was authentic and respectful, and it made Mavis reevaluate her views on marriage. The couple's choice to tie the knot was more driven by necessity than by any romantic feelings they could have had. The quickest and easiest method for Jay to include Mavis in his life insurance policy was for them to tie the knot. Might as well, Jay pondered. Their union was apparently not motivated by romance. Far from the ostentatious celebrations that characterize Hollywood, their wedding was a low-key occasion attended only by close friends and family. Following in the footsteps of Jay's parents' wedding day, they decided to tie the knot on November 3, 1980. For what reason had Mavis reconsidered her marriage proposal? In 2014, she addressed her belief that women's equality had been achieved in an interview with the Los Angeles Times. "I had moved on," she stated. She was prepared to start a new chapter in her life with Jay, despite the fact that her early rejection of marriage had been significant. While Jay's career took off, Mavis went her own way, fighting for human rights and feminist causes. Their marriage was a rock upon which he could build. Using her celebrity and position to bring attention to the plight of Afghan girls and women, she fought for their rights. It appeared like the Leno pair was made for each other, with each of them thriving in their own area and always there to back the other's dreams. But how had they managed to keep their marriage strong through the ups and downs of stardom and wealth? Jay revealed their secret sauce in a 2015 appearance on Today. He made a joke and said, "The trick is to marry like a normal person." He continued by saying that many individuals fall for a partner's imperfections once the honeymoon phase of a relationship has worn off. Beyond that, though, Jay's counsel was profound. You marry the person you wish you could be. He thought that Mavis exemplified the traits he respected and aspired to, and he communicated this fundamental fact with her. She served as an ever-present reminder of the significance of empathy, social justice, and compassion, serving as his conscience and moral compass. Their jobs couldn't have been more different, yet they looked to be a wonderful match. The self-described selfish entertainer, Jay discovered a sense of equilibrium in Mavis's altruistic commitment to helping others. As a team, they worked well together, encouraging one another to achieve their goals and making a difference in the world. A cloud descended upon the Leno household in the year 2024. Unfortunately, Jay's dear wife and constant friend Mavis was diagnosed with severe dementia, a terrible disease that has left her unable to remember even her own birthday. A tough but essential decision was made to award Jay conservatorship of their joint estate, to preserve Mavis's well-being and secure their shared assets. by the Los Angeles Superior Court. Life is precarious and disease can have catastrophic consequences. It was a sobering reminder of that. Jay and Mavis have weathered storms together, their friendship strengthening through the years. However, this new obstacle was distinct. It was a silent thief who was robbing Mavis of her independence and memories. For Jay, who had depended on his wife's steadfast encouragement and quick humor throughout their marriage, it was a devastating truth. Jay was still very committed to Mavis and made sure she had all the help she needed after hearing the terrible news. Even though he knew his wife's health was getting worse, he kept working and made appearances on stage and in front of the camera. After two parents passed away from cancer in 1994, Jay's life came crashing down. Because they had always been there for him, their departure created a huge hole in his life. His little brother Patrick battled illness for over a decade before succumbing to the disease in 2002 at the age of 62. The abrupt deaths of three close relatives in less than a decade struck Jay like a ton of bricks, leaving him to wonder what had happened to him. It seemed like his world was collapsing around him as he had to face the reality of losing his sibling, while the agony of losing his parents was still raw. Despite his insurmountable loss, Jay picked himself up and continued on. Despite the pain of his loss, he kept on entertaining others with his hilarious antics. The loss of his parents and brother continued to torment Patrick even after their deaths had passed, a full 2 decades later. In his homage to his father on The Tonight Show, Jay's genuine feelings shone through. The normally humorous MC broke down and opened up about his dad, offering touching recollections and experiences. His father, he said, had been a street boy in New York City, but he had a strong will to achieve and an unfaltering devotion to his family. Angelo, Jay's dad, had been a hero and a warrior. Despite enduring a difficult upbringing, he eventually became a prosperous insurance salesman and district manager. He was an honest man who would never discriminate against his wife or use harsh words. By consistently going out of his way to help his clients, particularly those in Harlem, Angelo was able to establish a unique rapport with them and win their undying devotion. While he was there, he shared jokes and stories and even brought sweets and presents for their kids. Life was already tough for Jay before his health problems began. His mandibular prognathism was more than simply a peculiar feature. It had become an integral component of his humorous persona, his large jaw, which he had always been renowned for. Despite having the option to fix it, Jay chose not to since he was unwilling to go through the long rehabilitation process with his jaws wired shut. Additionally, Jay struggled academically due to his dyslexia, a learning handicap. Still, he triumphed above it all, demonstrating that great things are possible despite setbacks. Jay was able to fit in his hobbies, especially his love of vehicles, even though he had a very hectic schedule. He devoted a great deal of time to his pastime, which involved modifying his extensive collection of automobiles in his garage. He also had a reputation for leading a healthy lifestyle, as he never smoked, gambled, or drank. On the other hand, he was working in his garage when tragedy struck again in November 2012. A car crash left Jay with serious burns all over his body, including his face and hands. He needed a new ear among his many injuries sustained in the crash. Although it was a terrible and painful event, Jay's strength and resolve were evident when he got well and went back to work. Then in January 2013, Jay was involved in a motorbike accident that resulted in several fractured bones. The fact that Jay suffered a second injury in as many months demonstrated his resilience and determination as he vowed to get well and keep following his dreams. A tumultuous period in Jay Leno's life began in 2005, when a high-profile court matter became entangled with the late-night comedy industry. In an unforeseen turn of events, Jay became embroiled in the child molestation trial of Michael Jackson, the King of Pop. As a defense witness, Leno was called upon during the trial. A strange and staged phone call he had with the accuser was the focal point of his testimony. The unexpected change of events put Leno in the sights of the judicial system, and his involvement in the trial caused a new wave of headlines, even though he was not asked for money. For a while after his testimony, The Tonight Show banned Leno from joking about Michael Jackson or the case. The comic took a major hit from this gag order as his opening speeches frequently touched on current events and offered opinion. But Leno and his writing staff figured out a cunning method to get around the gag order. During his opening monologue, Leno would step aside for a while to let other comedians offer jokes on the trial. Roseanne Barr, Drew Carey, Brad Garrett, and Dennis Miller were among the stand-up comics who took turns praising Michael Jackson and the continuing court drama. Leno was able to maintain his funny voice while obeying the rules, and it was a hilarious act of rebellion. Leno was eventually allowed to continue making jokes about the trial, as long as he refrained from discussing his testimony after the gag order was challenged in court. Because of this ruling, Leno was able to resume his signature act of making fun of the news and current events, which was a win for both him and free speech. In honor of the gag order being lifted, Leno committed his whole monologue to making fun of Michael Jackson. It was a release for him as he hurled a torrent of jokes and quips about the pop singer and the trial. Leno reasserted his comic domain to the delight of the crowd, demonstrating that comedy could triumph despite legal constraints.